Hello, thank you very much. It's nice that you're all here. We're Nicole on the top and Anna. We're from web-netz from Lüneburg. We have been in the SEO business for quite a long time and would like to start with why SEO. SEO is always seen in connection with Google. Well, we're Germans, we're very simple. Market power of Google is given. We have a market share of about 93%. So search engine optimization for Google. And when we want to optimize the shops, we usually do that for all search engines. But the algorithm of Google is the most fine-tuned one. So if it's good for Google, usually it's also good for the other search engines. Google developed a lot in recent years, since the launch in 1998. The presentation has really changed. It began with the normal organic search and the shopping view. Then in 2007, we had the launch of the Google Universal pictures, like maps, that were integrated. In 2011, then the navigation on the left side, where next to the search result page, there were also images, news, other products. And now today, the new look, the search result, very differentiated. Google Universal Search means that in the end we have different components that we need to consider for our SEO strategy, because we really need to think about which segment we would like to organize and how do we want to give information to our users. Google News is very important for all publishers. You want to be found. You want to be the first to report that Trump handles Iran in a certain way. You want to be found in Google Maps. All your Google My Business entries need to be given no matter where you are in the search results with the keyword hairdressers in Munich, for example, if you have your maps entry. Videos, that's clear. YouTube, the second biggest search engine in the world, so that's also a segment that's often neglected, and there's a lot of potential for improvement here. And the picture or image search in Google, where visual effects are looking at. People like to search products of fashion, furniture. If you don't look in Pinterest, then they look at the Google image search to get inspiration. This is an example if you look for Volkswagen. This is the search result page where the organic search is under the red dotted line. You have the display with the different site links. You have the news that is visible, the featured snippet, and organic optimization is really not what really counts that much anymore on the first page in form of metadata. Over the years, Google has always changed due to updates, which are called like animals, penguin, panda, a lot of shock waves for the SEO world and shop operators. Generally, we can say that it is very dynamic. I'm never done with my shop and SEO, so it is something that needs to be looked after continuously so that this marketing instrument also bears some fruit. I brought two examples of Home24. You all know that. It's a subsidiary of Rocket Internet, so generally speaking, they know what they're doing. And on this screen, that's from Systrix. Who knows Systrix? Wonderful. So you know that this is the indices of the keyword rankings. And in 2013, there was the first Penguin update, where Home24 was hit hard. was in the penalty with a lot of rankings. They were not displayed anymore, and they could do whatever they wanted on page, load speed, and so on. All that didn't help until the next Penguin update came. So these rankings were not available anymore. There were some pages that were not indexed by Google at all anymore. And after the Google guidelines, you really need to be conformant to be displayed. Konrad.de is the same. You can see the blue dots, and they show you that these updates are quite frequent. And they do not always have an impact on your ranking and your e-commerce success, but can have a quite deep impact on your results. You can see that for Konrad, it was quite nice until 2014. From 14 to 16, it was going well, but then there was an update this year in March where SEO was killed completely. So there's quite a risk with all these updates, and what we can do is what we summarize here in 5 different topics. So the first thing is navigation structure. This is what we'd like to start with because it's essential. Why is it essential? Because the user coming to a web page, it is to show to the user where you can find what on our website. Nobody has a lot of patience. Nobody wants to look for a long time. So if they don't find what they want in that point in time, they just leave again. So the goal of providing a lot of information needs to be met with a reduced structure so that you can find quickly what you're looking for in your target group. So it needs to be relevant to your target group, and for that you need to think about what kind of information your target group has, what they need, what kind of terms they are acquainted with, what are they looking for, what are they searching for, and you need to guide them. For that, I brought an example. Who can tell me what this is about? What kind of shop is this? So silence, I think you are at a loss. You know the shop. Well, these are car seats, orthopedic car seats, and that's what it ranks for. But you can't see that because the pole position is at the beginning. The first dot in the navigation is field performance. What does field performance tell you? Well, if you're looking for an orthopedic car seat, you don't really know that you can find the right information just here. So this is not very successful. The second example, Wine & Co. Maybe the colleagues of Wine & Co. are here. From my point of view, this is a great success because different possibilities of entering the website were generated for the user. I don't know where in the customer journey my customer is currently and in what segment, what kind of information need there is. But this is a very clear structure, wine by type, by origin, by region, by color, and additionally you can also select by producer or wine under 10 euros, under 20 euros. So everything's available and the users can quickly navigate to the segment they want to go to. So that's a successful one. But how do we get the best navigation structure? For perfect navigation, you need the right keyword research. So SEO always starts with the right keywords. You need to look at the terms users would try to find the product, and that should be reflected on my webpage. So the focus is still on the key group and what kind of terms the group actually uses. Is it a niche segment where there is professional language like doctors? Doctors might use different terms than regular users or their people who are ill. And then you also need to look for different topics that are relevant with wine and co. Do you want to look for white wine, red wine, rose wine, or do you want to look for Sauvignon? So depending on the search volumes, we can determine whether there is more interest or less and what to position on your website. And third, what kind of services do customers want to buy and how would they call them? That's a conflict, a constant conflict. If you call the keywords what we as experts call them, you have a problem. It's similar when a developer talks to a customer. You need to somehow translate it. We SEOs also do that. So we have to find the right words that customers would use. And how can I implement this keyword research? Well, there's the Google Keyword Planner. That's a great help, indicating where there are search volumes. But it's a very quantitative tool because it doesn't tell you anything about the quality of your target group. It could happen that there's a lot of searches for one keyword, but not relevant to my target group, and then I don't have a high conversion rate. So are these actually terms that I also see as successful ones? If I do AdWords, can I see, for example, whether the target group achieves a high conversion rate? Have I implemented that on my website? Then you get also organic traffic with the same keywords. And internal search is also an important tool to see what kind of users we have, what is not found intuitively on my web page. So the internal search needs to work well, and it needs to offer a lot of possibility. Do you only scroll the products, or is it positioned in a way that landing pages can be found? Or is it supporting me in its intelligent search further? Softwares are also important because service employees of your customer can help you. What kind of terms do they have in their customer management, complaint management? What topics are relevant to them there? So what is being mentioned frequently? What do I need to implement then on my web page? In the end, we work with a keyword map at web-netz. So for every relevant URL, we also want to have a focus keyword family. Because for Google, it's important that we have a clear message. We don't want to have 5 different URLs for one keyword. So on one page for shoes, you can find all the information, but blue shoes and colors, everything can be found on a different one. So strategically, that can be presented in the keyword map. So you write down the categories, the URLs, and then you define a keyword family per URL, which you then use for further optimization, for metadata, for the text, for the internal links. There, it is really essential and should be relevant for all shop operators. So you set it up once, then monitor it and implement it. Hi, my name is Nicole. And what Anna didn't mention, I saw the first few people who took pictures. You don't have to do that. You can give us your business card and we'll send you the PDF version of that. You don't need to take notes or pictures. So I'm in charge of relaunch as an introduction, because a website is never completed. I've never met a shop operator who said my website is completed, because that would only be valid for a limited period in time. So as shop operators, don't do any changes in the CMS with any SEO consultant. So if you relaunch your website, you can have a new layout, a new design, or more functionalities that were not possible in a new shop. User friendliness might also have to be revised from time to time, or you want to send up the entire structure, a new navigation, because you want to have a completely different user approach. But usually, we do on-page optimization. I'm the only techie mouse in the on-page optimization. If there's so many on-page optimizations, then you say, well, now there's time for a relaunch. If you relaunch, there are a few things you need to consider. A few people are needed, the developers, the designers, but also a UX expert. So test the old system and the new one, and the CEO who has a look at everything, so it's not going to be a fail. There are good and bad reasons for a relaunch. Good reasons are a very agile competition. If you want to keep up to speed, then you need to relaunch the obsolete technology, for example, if there are no more updates available because it's not being supported anymore, or a poor website structure, over-indexation. There, it might make sense to relaunch, but you need to be very careful because a relaunch has a lot of risks. A few things can go wrong anytime, and a few things can be revised with a small change only. You might not need a complete relaunch. So take a few steps, smaller ones at one time, and not relaunch everything completely. Only do that if it's really not working any other way. And if you look at the picture, well, that's time for a relaunch. Now, a lot of mistakes that can happen with a relaunch. We only got 10 on this page. And a few things that happen with shopware shops. The shop usually, during the development phase, somehow gets onto the index. So duplicate content, for example, and until you've deleted it, it takes quite some time. So have a password or a blockage from the indexation by meta robots, but anytime you push it up again, you need to block it again. So for that, SEO is a good recommendation as well. And when you go online, and if you have an index blocker in the metadata, so Google, please don't index me, with a real launch, you need to take that out. Sometimes people come to see us and say, everything's nice, it looks beautiful, the content is there, all of links are forwarded, and, well, everything is set to 0 on the index, so then it can't rank in Google. Forwarding is also something we think is very hard work, but there's some tools you can use for that. For any URL that is looked at least one time per year, there should be a forward or a backlink from a different website, or visibility of keywords, of districts. You need to look at that and then also install the forwards. Indexing policies are really underestimated. A lot of people say, well, let's go online, but the parameters were not set correctly, and they flood Google with an indexation wave. Look at everything, and Google says, oh, I can't do it. And then it's just too much for Google. Not all pages can be crawled. Then that's difficult too. So that's the same as the crawling policy. You need to think about that. What do you want to have in the index? Where does it make sense? What doesn't make sense? So that the index remains compact. URL and parameters. There's a lot of failure potential in that. So make sure you do it right. Structured data, does that tell you something? Does that ring a bell? 20%, okay. Fewer people. Structured data. With schema.org, you have data that's available in a file, a price, an address, and these things can be displayed in stock, for example. These are things that should be structured. In most templates, it's already included, but often they are wrong, and you need to check those. Several languages is something that's not considered during relaunches. A relaunch is a point in time where you think you can also go internationally to have the language flags. So that does make sense when you relaunch, but you could also say in 2 or 3 years you would like to add a second or third language, then the href along does make sense. Data compression, everything goes online, the crawler can't handle it, that's a mistake. So try to keep data as complex as possible and compressed. If you have a relaunch and you have normal tracking, but the e-commerce tracking is not included or tested, and then you have conversion rates of 0 or 1% or 50%, oops, then you need to be careful and pay attention. So what's a failure of a relaunch look like? So look at that. Here, no forwarding is installed, no. So if you have a failed relaunch, you can also improve the situation slightly, but never go back to the peak level before. So use a little bit more money and have the right people on board, or else it's bad. So this is when, if you look at the HRS and more than 5,000 keywords were dropped from the index here in Google. So that's an old Google joke. Where does SEO hide its bodies, dead bodies? On page 2. Nobody looks at page 2. So if it's not page 1, forget about it. Now, what's a good relaunch? I wouldn't say MediaMarkt had a good relaunch, but visibly an improved page. And they also now have a complete mirror of their advertising brochures, and that's much nicer than before. So we think that's a successful approach. Now, talking about the Hamburg soccer team, we're from Lüneburg. We're very sad that they are not in the first league anymore. They did a relaunch. They did not have a good person to look after them. So we relaunched FC St. Pauli back then, and HSV lost 40% of its visibility after the relaunch, and St. Pauli had a 30% up in the same, a slightly better situation now, maybe because of the new technology.
Why do we tell you so much about relaunches? And we know that most of you work with Shopware, but in Shopware there are also some SEO requirements which need to be reiterated. The canonical tag, which is often not right, and there's also no 404 error page, so no support for the user. And the indexing of page numbering and categories need to be checked. It's also, it does make sense to have some standard changes to limit the infinite scrolling so that it doesn't keep loading, because once the text basically drops down, Google's not going to find it anymore. So we have to make sure that we don't push it too much. And text representation. In our online shops, for instance, when we place content on categories, then they will just tease us, and then it's a drop-down menu, and the rest of the text will be at the bottom. But you need two text fields to be able to separate that. Another Shopware customer, and we pinched some of the reference material. That is HTTPS. Those who actually converted to HTTPS? I would say it's about 50%. That's a small number. So HTTPS is a ranking factor which Google has confirmed. So please convert or change to HTTPS and buy the certificate. And of course, I think you can actually get some for free. It is super fast and it's no big deal. Google actually warns people of accessing non-encoded or non-encrypted pages. They send a message, this is not a safe home page or website. Do you really want to visit? Sure. If not, well, I better go to Amazon. So make sure that you're using HTTPS. This is an HTTPS from Welt.de. Of course, they've changed quite a bit on their website, also a new layout, but this was a proper relaunch. There was no drop in the curve, so we can see that's a constant improvement ever since they changed to HTTPS. Right. Load times. Okay. This is again a technical subject. We've changed the presentation a little bit. So load times is of course an important ranking factor, of course, when it comes to the conversion. Amazon has actually done studies to see how much conversion people lose per added second loading time. So if the website is 1.5 megabyte, that's fairly big, but it's okay for a shop. So for mobile websites, once they are loaded completely, on average take 22 seconds. That's very long. 53% of users actually leave after only 3 seconds. So it should be possible to load the website within 3 seconds for mobile applications. There were some studies that were conducted, and they said you lose 1% in turnover per 100 milliseconds in load time, so the faster the better. And we can see that from other websites. So 7% loss of conversion for each additional time of load time, 11% fewer hits, and 16% less user satisfaction. So you want to aim for 1.5 seconds loading time. It's quite a good benchmark, but we need to differentiate here, because there are differences. You might say load time means until the whole content is uploaded, but until you see what you want to see. Or load time is until you can actually become interactive, and then consistently interactive. So I think these are 3 different parameters. I would actually go to above hold, and then at the end of the waiting period, I have all the time until everything is uploaded. There's a free tool from Google for that. It's not super good, so you don't look into a gifted horse's mouth, but it works. So less than 1.5 seconds. I do recommend the Google tool, but there's also webpagetest.org. You can actually look at the video, or you come to see us at the booth in the middle aisle. on the middle corridor, and then we can also conduct speed tests with you and take a closer look. This is wineco.de. Let's see whether it's our positive or negative example. You become so impatient.
Warte, jetzt. Aber irgendwie sieht es auch schon wieder anders aus. Ich glaube 15 Sekunden. Ich weiß es nicht. Also, es ist eine unglaublich lange Ladezeit.
So it's an incredibly long load time, 14.8 seconds. I think it took at least 5 seconds until I could see something. This is otto.de. They have a long video, but 2 seconds until you're interactive. So of course they continue uploading the content, but just look at the sequence that content is loaded. The next one is the accessibility of the website and of course the speed. Of course it might well be that you have a huge database, which is quite typical for some shops, but on the whole this is often quite significant. Large or big data on the website, like big images, or if you want to incorporate videos, that requires a lot of memory. So not activated, compacted content is also a server setting, and you can actually define that in HTTPS, and then you can actually downsize that. And Google PageSpeed would actually deliver that as well. Large images, I mentioned that. That's often the reason. So for 80% of the PageSpeed audits that we conduct, this is the main problem we identified. So often it's also a server that's too slow, but often they are upgraded enough so that they are quite functional for shops. Sometimes they try to upload too many external data, tracking codes, for instance. This could actually become obstructive too. And also a small trick here. We have had some good experience with HTTP2. It's a different protocol used for asynchronous loading of the website, where you can make pixeling parallel, which is quite good for the loading process. And do take a look at that. It's a conversion that you can do for the server, also with a front of web version. Now we get to the content. Content is king. We've known that for a number of years. Shopware provides lots of opportunities, shopping worlds, digital publishing. So you can actually do a lot or design a lot yourself. But the question is, what do you want to design, and how can you design in a way that the computer likes it, and you get super rankings, and you generate the added value and the traffic that you're looking for? So Nicole told me to speed up. Content is definitely an important ranking factor. So we still have 15 minutes. This is quite nice because you can see here the areas where you can make optimizations. So this is an optimized website where you have an URL with a keyword, which you have defined with your keyword research. You have the metadata, the meta title and description. The description. The number of characters was increased by Google earlier this year. They've reduced it again. So if you've limited your metadata to 320 characters, I recommend to go back to 160 to 2 lines. we work with a compromise. We actually type in 320 characters, but use 140 for the main message, so we're fit for both formats. So we only want to have one H1, which should contain the keyword. We want to have another H and also some text with the semantic environment, and we want to update images and files and file texts. This is an example of Stabilo. It's a nice visual appearance. They actually tried to provide a content and an article, so it has a search number of hits of 590. So despite mobiles, handwriting still seems to be an issue, which is quite cool. So they uploaded a text which could be better to generate rankings, but this did not exist. So people, that was not the objective. People who visit the site should not really look for this text, but people who do search on Google. And I've illustrated the H structure for it. So we get gibberish. So make sure that your content pages are very well structured hierarchically, where you work with the keywords, where you try to incorporate different media. So you could have, writing exercises. So it could have a much more premium appeal. There are some who do quite well. This is a DIY company, Hornbach. Its competitors are also doing quite well. It's probably not that appealing. On the left-hand side, we have the classical navigation, which, of course, is not as sexy as the full screening that Stabilo uses, but it meets its SEO purpose. This is for sealing of your ground floor or basement walls, external walls. So if you want to renovate your own house, this is certainly important for house owners. At least it's 1,300 people in Germany who do that every month, and they know that they can buy the material from Hornbach. And there's a step-by-step process description, and this is quite an important part of the house. So definitely thumbs up for this design. So let's take a look at mobile and UX. So optimization, mobile optimization. So for years we've been saying you need a mobile version of your website, and Shopware actually developed a responsive website. So for those of you who haven't done that, make sure that you also have a mobile website. People actually do more research with mobile devices than with desktop. So we see that there's a clear trend here, and it's going to go up. So how does it compare to desktop, this mobile indexing? First of all, you have a different bot. Google has two different ones, one with a mobile crawler, one for desktop. This is the mobile crawler, which basically says, well, hi, I'm a smartphone, do let me in. So they also write that in the Google index. And earlier this year, Google announced that they are going to switch to a mobile index. So they're no longer going to use a sub-crawler that will define the ranking, but the ranking is influenced by your mobile search or your mobile result, and you should make sure that it's good. If your mobile ranking is poor, this will also have repercussions on your desktop ranking. So this is only just beginning, and Google just announced earlier this week that they're going to change it. So it's about high time to change that. Mobile first. This is an official factor which Google defined, and they have always emphasized this. Any website that is optimized for mobile applications will always have a better ranking than one that is not optimized. Load times is also important, so if the page loads quite slowly for the mobile application, that could also affect the desktop ranking. So if you want to check whether your website is mobile friendly, Google also offers a tool. It's called Mobile Friendly Test. So don't worry, it doesn't influence the ranking. So you could actually add to your website and see where you still have improvement potential. It's a bit about user experience, user signals, not so much social signals. And I would like to show you some differences. This is a nice website on the Apollo mission. It is very interactive. You can click on the small planets and you get loads of information. Unfortunately, I could not see them, and Google couldn't either, and neither could Google because we hadn't installed a Flash player. Please forget about Flash player. And there are some websites which are not appealing, rather ugly, but they meet their purpose and therefore perform very well. This one, for instance, football, live information, doing extremely well with lots of clicks, with lots of live information. So if you think mobile, also think about your navigation. If you have these huge navigation trees, it's fair enough, but look at the mobile rankings. In mobile applications, people actually want to call up a website, and if the load time is okay, but they also need to have the ability to scroll. How much can the mobile user actually see? So make sure that your navigation is done very well, so that you have mobile first to build up the mobile usability, and then try to transfer the design to the desktop. So this is quite a failure. So I said use these clear commands. On the left-hand side, we have a website where on the right-hand side there is an example which is not really a success. You can see that the button is actually cut off. So you need to have a clear-cut structure which gives you clear instructions. There's a very good book. The title is Don't Make Me Think, and it's exactly about this, how to create a user-friendly design. And I highly recommend that. Right, we've provided loads of food for thought to you. I'm sure nobody is going to leave without any good ideas. If not, please send any complaints to Anna. So let's see what structure we need. When we want to optimize a website, then we start with a technical audit, because if the technology is shit, anything built on that technology might be well designed, but you will never have the desired result. Of course, usability and content are almost on the same level, so they are interrelated. If you want to write a SEO text, please don't write a SEO text. Write a text for the user, so you would get to position 0 and get an even better ranking. And off-page is the top of it. So it's more about the backlinks. You must make sure that there are no poor backlinks rather than upbuilding of backlinks. Of course, they're good, but it's more like online PR rather than creating links. So this is the to-do list for you. Check your navigation and keywords, whether they make sense. It's what I call the Moody test. I do that I call that the mum test, and that's because my mum calls me and says, well, Nicole, I've deleted something accidentally. So do watch what people are doing. That's quite interesting, because if people look at that and then actually leave very early, then you know that the navigation doesn't work. And you need to update your content regularly. You can always make improvements. There are some great ideas how you can do it, how you can monitor that, Watch for your competition as well. There's nothing wrong with being a good copycat. And of course, adjustments, if you have to make any adjustments. And you think, okay, it's time for a relaunch, please do it with SEO. And speed, mobile, and HTTPS, it's not just the nice-to-have part, it's imperative, really. Please visit us at our booth down this corridor, booth 27. We have time to answer any questions there.